did you come down to Australia as well? Like, we
So
have like the Vans Warped Tour as well. So
yeah.
did you come
So
down to
what
Australia?
ends Yeah, so what ends up happening with Wax is, I'm in Wax till about, I would say, Wax, lasted till about like 94, 95. And
And
then
then
Wax,
22 Jacks,
yeah.
was it?
So then
Yeah.
Wax, melts and it ends, and we had a great run. And then,
Sorry.
yeah,
What happened there? Was it just like time to sort of break up, or you had
um,
other directions or musical
um,
directions, or
okay.
is it
So if I
is it a
tell the
little?
truth, no. I just feel, if I tell the truth, I feel bad because I love those guys and like I'm friends with all of them. But to be totally 100% honest, and if I don't tell you, it's the history. So they kicked me out of the band.
Right.
We were in San Francisco, and they basically, we got done with the show, and they said, "Hey, we're going on to the next show, but you're staying here." And I was
Wow.
like, it just ended. And like, here's the deal. Like, I'm not going to say that now. First of all, they made a mistake kicking me out of the band. That was wrong. But I deserve to maybe get kicked out of the band because I'm a very, I'm the guy that, like, I'm going to get up in the morning and I'm going to do push-ups and I'm going to go for a run. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to say, let's write some songs. And then after we write the songs, I'm going to say, let's also, talk about new t-shirt design. Like I could see when, like, as much as like someone listening to this right now is like, oh my gosh, like, I love Joe Tibbs' energy. I love, I love how much he's so positive. You also got to remember that could get maybe a bit annoying and a bit overwhelming because I want to go.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going
Like
to
a
stop
battery.
going. Yeah. I'm not going to stop going,
Yeah.
Craig, until I'm in the ground. And I think I pushed the guys in the band a lot. And, I'll be honest, when someone, I'm not afraid to call someone out on their BS. And I think sometimes, I got a tongue that could say, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Come on, tighten it up. And I would say that. And I think after a while, when you start experiencing success, and I think the other band members, at that time we're like, wow, this, we don't need to work that hard. We can do, and I just think, we were young kids,
Yes.
and, also I think we needed a break at that time. I think if we would have had a real manager, a manager would have stepped in and said, okay, no one's kicking Joe out. We're going to take a break for a second here.
Yes.
And that's what we're going to do. And we didn't have that. So they kicked me out of the band. And of course, I took it to heart and I was like, oh, you want to kick me out of my band? Well, check this out. I'm going to start another band and I'm going to fucking crush everything that we did. And I went out and I went right to one of the best songwriters and one of the best iconic punk rock legends around, Steve Soto. He was one of my best friends. I went straight to him and said, I want to start a band. He said, don't have to ask twice. Let's do it. And then him and we just started going. And I just said, I'm going to, Jason Cropper, who got kicked out of got kicked out of Weezer. I'm going to write songs with him. I'm going to write songs with Chris Shiflett. Chris Shiflett, of course, is in the Foo Fighters. At that time, he was in No Use for a Name. So, like, all I did was I was like, I'm going to go around and write songs with all of these musicians that happen to be my friends. And then we're going to deal with putting together a band later on. And we made, the Uncle Bob record. And once again, we had a great lineup, put together a great lineup. We started touring, it connected, and people know, at the end of the day, 22 Jacks ended up becoming a bigger band than Wax. Right. And Wax, although it's a great band and I'm super proud of it, 22 Jacks did way more touring than Wax ever did. I mean, 22 Jacks toured with Social Distortion. 22 Jacks went out with the Mighty Mighty Bosstones. 22 Jacks went to Australia twice, did the work. I mean, we toured all around the world, multiple tours. And we really made a mark with that band. But it was at that point I was really driven by, it was like a guy and a girl breaking up. Like, yes. Oh, really? Check it out. You want to break up with me? Well, I'm going to go find another band. Yeah. But the thing I have to say and I know that your listeners might be, why is this so important for him to say? I cannot stress enough that the guys I started Wax with, I love them so much. They taught me how to write. I mean, those guys were so great at songwriting. And if it wasn't for the three of them giving me the chance to sing for their band, I wouldn't be sitting here with you right now doing this. So there's no ill will with them. I always hate whenever I have to say they kicked me out because, they were my friends. I see them. I know they're kids. It's like, we're all good. It's just, that was a part of the story that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about your experiences in Australia.
I fucking
coming out
loved
to
it.
Australia. Tell us some of your stories about.
Are we allowed to swear? No?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, sorry about that. How's that look? Does that look better?
Yeah, that's good.
Look at me. I loved Australia. I mean, Australia, I went down there for the first time with the Warped Tour with 22 Jacks, and then we came back and toured down there again with Real Big Fish. It was awesome. Nice. I mean, just great venues. We were on a great label down there. I mean, all I have is just great memories of the tour, great memories of the people. We had real fans there. I mean, I used to, almost joke around that Australia was like Fantasy Island. It was just, it was amazing. And as a comedian, I've often, just been like, I really would love to go there and do stand-up because I have had a lot of people from Australia tell me, oh my gosh, people would really like your energy and your vibe and get your jokes. So hopefully someday I can get down there.
Well, that's the thing. Like Henry Rollins has come down here quite a few times, and he's spoken word's amazing. Every time he comes here, I'm always on there laughing my guy. And I think you'd fit into it to a T. We've got a good sort of a comedy scene as well. Just going up the coast and all little amphitheaters and we've got in Newcastle here, we've got the Civic Theatre. And it's part of the Sydney Comedy Festival. So yeah, definitely. We'd love to come out here. You're always welcome.
I'd love to come.
Yeah, absolutely. So you spoke before about your record label, Side One Dummy Records. Yep. Is that still going at the moment, or is
yes?
Yep. So
no, yeah. Side One Dummy Records. We celebrated 25 years this year.
That's amazing.
We just we've released over 500 albums.
Yeah.
It was funny today, we just signed a new act called Sat Sing, super cool band.
Yeah, right.
We have another act, Plasma Canvas, out of Denver. Andy Frasco, it's definitely difficult with COVID going on because none of these people can tour. The label's been home to Flogging Molly, Gaslight Anthem. Yeah. Go-Go Bordello. We've done every single Warped Tour compilation. We've really, once again, when I think about Side One Dummy, I'll be honest, Craig, it's like, it's another, everything we just talked about for the last half hour, it's like, oh, okay. But like Side One Dummy is one of my proudest moments because, it's one thing when you're the singer and you're in the band and you're creating it, but it's another thing when you get to be a part of watching and seeing someone else obtain their goals. And to be totally honest with you, the achievements that Flogging Molly or Gaslight Anthem have achieved are way, way bigger than my personal music, achievements. Like, my bands were cool, but Flogging Molly's an internationally known band.
Yes.
Gaslight Anthem is Go-Go Bordello, so many of these bands, just even the newer acts, Andy Frasco, just all of these bands. I mean, they're internationally known and they're just around the world, and for me, I might not have ever achieved that success as a singer in my band, but I think I'm almost more proud of the fact that I've been able to be a part of, multiple bands achieving that success. And sometimes I feel like that was the reason I was put on this earth, because I'm good at like driving people and pushing them and helping them to obtain their goals. And I just also, with the help of my partner, Bill Armstrong, we've been very fortunate to have a great set of ears to sign bands that we feel are important. And I'm super grateful for that, because, you know, when I think of like, you know, signing Flogging Molly, I mean, to some people that'd be the equivalent of signing the Clash, you know.
That's right.
Or I mean honestly, because our common ground is Metallica, you and I would say to some people, when I tell them I signed, you know, I've worked with Brian Fallon and Gaslight Anthem, they're like, they think that's like in their eyes and their hearts, that's Metallica, because they have the Gaslight Anthem tattoo. They, Flogging Molly, and they're like, this band, you know, I mean, I wish, you know, if I had $1 for every time someone told me how much Gaslight Anthem changed their life, how much Flogging Molly changed their life, how much Title Fight changed their life, how much, you know, the Casualties changed. I mean, these bands had such an impact on these people's lives. You know, sometimes I feel bad because I meet these kids and they're like, you know, man, when I heard Flogging Molly, I decided, and, you know, I quit college. I'm like, whoa, what? You know, like, I'm like, your parents must hate us, you know, like, but like, no, it's like, they're like, no, I went on to pursue what I wanted to do. And for me personally, that that's one of the proudest things that I've ever been a part of, and that I'm super, super proud of, that I've been able to help these bands achieve this huge success.
Well, the thing is, Joe, that you've lived it yourself. You know, you've gone through all the experiences with the record labels yourself, and to you actually to be in bands before, you can see it from their side. You know, when you sign them and all the things that happen to you, you can say, well, okay, this is, you know, you can sort of steer them in the right direction. You know. Yeah,
I mean, that's why I think, you know, because, you know, at a certain point in your life, you know, you always kind of think about like, oh, you know, how did that work out, or why did this happen? And I remember, I think I figured that out though, like relatively young, because there was times where I was like, you know, why am I not Eddie Vedder? You know, why? You know, I mean that. I was like, yeah. What's so great about Pearl Jam? You know, what's so great about Soundgarden? And I remember seeing Pearl Jam and Soundgarden for the first time ever at Lollapalooza. I think it was the second Lollapalooza, wow. And Wax was on that stage. We were on the stage, and we were on a side stage. And I was like, why are we on the side stage? We should be on the main stage. And I was pissed. And I remember I marched over there, and I'm like, I'm going to see this Pearl Jam band. I'm going to see Soundgarden. You know, man, why are we not on here? And I remember Soundgarden went on first, and Chris Cornell came out, and the band came out. And I remember being on the side of the stage, and it took all of about, I don't know, 4 minutes for me to realize I do not have what he has.
All right.
Now, I didn't verbally say that, but in my mind, I was like, whoa, okay. Yes. And then they got done, and I was in shell shock. And then Pearl Jam came out, and I was like, okay, all right. Like, I'm not going to vocalize this, but I'm telling you right now, I'm never going to be, I don't have what those guys have. Like, I don't have it. But the weird thing was I could see it, and I could see, and like, what I'm trying to say is this, like, when I think about Dave King from Flogging Molly, or when I think about, you know, Brian Fallon from Gaslight Anthem, or, you know, even, you know, Dickie Barrett and the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, like, I can say, there's a moment in your mind where you have to say, hey, it's not me, but you know what? I can help them. And yes. I can get them to achieve the goals and dreams that they want. And, you know, with like Benny and Alex's from Gaslight Anthem, like when I saw that band and when Bill and I saw it, I was like, okay, you know, this is greatness right here. And then, you know, same thing with the other bands on the label, like, you know, all the bands on the label, anytime we signed a band on the label, you know, I've never signed a band on Side One Dummy not saying to myself, I want this to be huge. Like, yes. It's never been like, you know, and I remember even one time meeting a band, and I kind of scared them off, because I was like, you know, what's your plan? What do you want to do? And they were like, well, we would be, you know, there was a small club, and their goal was, They just want to headline like their local club. And I said, no. I go, what about you? You know, the plan is we get you to the, you know, you want to headline the Forum in LA. Yeah. And they were like, they said to me, yeah, we're not that, we don't, that's not what we don't want to, like, we don't want that type of success. And I was like, okay, then I'm the wrong guy.
Yes.
Because I'm like, you know,
I want to get you to the next.
Yeah. Call me old school, call me a boomer, but it's like I grew up with The Clash and they did a month at Bond's Theater because every show sold out. I want to work with bands that want to change people's lives. I want to work with bands that have no backup plan. They're like, look, if this doesn't happen, then we're not eating tonight. And that's the type. And I love that kind of art. I love sink or swim attitude.
Absolutely. I want to throw a little bit of a curveball, go off topic a little bit. I noticed in like actor and producer, and in '95 you were a part of Mallrats. Yeah. How did that all come about? When you are trying to be a punk rock, playing in the band. You know?
I know. So the way that all came about was, Wax we were in LA. And we had a manager, and they were doing the movie Mallrats. And, next thing we knew, they were like, we need a song for it. And it was like, okay. So we wrote a song for that. And I think before that, where the actor comes in, there was a movie with one of the Baldwin brothers, I want to say Stevie, and Pauly Shore. And they had this movie called Biodome. Oh. And basically, they needed a band to play at this party during the Biodome, like as it falls apart. And basically someone in there liked the band and they saw us and our look and they were like, hey man, would you guys want to be in this movie? And, we're young kids and we're like, hell yeah. So they flew us, out, we were on the road. They flew us to LA. They put us up at the Hyatt and we were stoked. And, we were on the Universal lot and we worked. And that was how I met Pauly Shore.
Wow.
And it was crazy because, at that point, I had never thought about doing comedy or anything. Yeah. And I remember I met Pauly Shore on the set of his movie. And for some reason, he was just cool. And then, it was just, we did our thing. He was cool to us. We left. It was done. The movie came out. We were stoked. But then for years, I never saw Pauly. And then when I started doing spoken word and doing that show, California Calling, yes. I got a phone call from someone that knew Pauly. And they said, hey man, I work with Pauly and he'd love to meet with you at the Comedy Store. And I was like, oh yeah. And over the years, I'd run into Pauly and he was always cool, But when I came up to the Comedy Store, he was like, man, you should really be doing your show, California Calling, here. And I was like, really? And he goes, yeah, you should. And I was like, I mean, how do we make that happen? And he goes, this is why my mom built this room for shows like this. And I was like, okay. And he let me do the show. And at that point I was doing spoken word. It was stories and talking. And then, and it was funny, people were into it. Yeah. I sold out the first time I ever did it. And then afterwards, about 6 months later to a year, I really wanted to start doing stand-up. And everyone told me, not to, that it's a nightmare and that you don't want to do it. And I was like, no, I want to do it. And I reached out to Pauly and said, hey, could you help me? And he said, yeah, sure. And he introduced me to someone and I started going to the Comedy Store. And the Comedy Store at that point, and still is, I mean, there's a definite protocol to the way they work the comics there. And I couldn't be a guy, because at that point my kids were super young, and I couldn't be the guy like, you got to come to the Comedy Store. I'm going to sneeze. You got to come to the Comedy Store and you got to hang out and you got to, work the front door. And I was like, I'm a grown man. I can't do that. So I did I've done shows there, obviously, but I never was like a paid regular, which is a coveted spot in the world of comedy, to be a paid regular at the Comedy Store. But for me, my home club started to become the Improv in Hollywood, and then the Laugh Factory. The Laugh Factory, they started putting me up a lot, and that really kind of allowed me to spend, the next 5 years just kind of honing in and trying to figure out what kind of comic I was going to be and doing that. But, you know, the acting and, you know, Mallrats thing, I mean, those, I mean, still to this day, like Mallrats and Biodome, like every
cult classics.
So often. Yeah. They're just, it was, you know, I'm super, like I said, super, I can't believe we did it. And it was just rad, you know? I mean, like when I see the footage of Biodome every once in a while, like, you know, every once in a while, like it'll be on TV or something. And like my daughter will send me a picture like, there you are, you know, like, yep. Yeah. So it was, you know, it was cool.
Now, Joe, I wanted to ask you were talking about transitioning from doing what is it, spoken word to stand up. Was that a hard transition, or was it something that you found pretty easy to do?
Well, you know, I mean, I mean, the whole thing. I don't want to say like it was hard because it was just a lot of work, and it was a lot of, you know, with stand-up comedy. And spoken word for me, that came, you know, naturally, and doing stand up came naturally. Like I was always a comic that, you know, I've always gotten laughs.
Yes.
And, you know, it like, you know, whether or not they were great laughs or whether, you know, what kind of laugh are you getting? Like, I'm sure we could talk about that, but like, I was always comfortable on stage. So like, you know, it was doing storytelling and doing comedy for me. That part wasn't hard, like getting on stage. But and I don't want to say it was hard, but what was important to me was I wanted to be a good stand-up.
Yes.
I wanted to be great. I didn't want to just get laughs to get them. And when you first start doing comedy and you learn how to get laughs, then before you know it, you start getting laughs, and then you go home at night and you're like, what kind of laugh did I get? Did I get a laugh that, you know, that people are just going to leave the venue and not ever talk about it? Or am I going to get a laugh that tomorrow when they're at work and they're talking to their friend during break, they're going to try to imitate my joke. They're going to try to say the words I said, and then that person's going to laugh, and I'm not even there. That's the type of laugh I want to get. That's the type I want to be that good. And that to me was where I, in my opinion, really focused for the last 11 years, and just I dedicated my time to that, you know, to the point of like, if I wasn't working at Side One, or if I wasn't, you know, home with my family, I was in a nightclub doing stand up and doing a lot of it, you know, like, you know, and you have to, even before COVID happened, you know, I'd gotten to a place where I was, you know, the only 2 days that I wasn't doing stand up unless I was on the road is Sunday and Monday. And when I was at home, I would do stand-up comedy Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then I'd leave to go on the road for the weekend, come home, and then Tuesday, you know, you have to be doing it all the time. It's not something you get good at not doing. And unfortunately, like if you truly want to be a great comedian, it's something else in your life will fall to the wayside because you have to work so hard at being a stand-up. Now, you know, that could be your marriage, that could be your relationship with your kids, but I'm guarantee you, if you sat down with like Bill Burr, or if you sat down with Lewis Black and said, hey, have you ever been focused on comedy so much to get to where you are that do you think if you look back on your life, things would have, you know, could have been differently if you hadn't have been a comic? And I guarantee you they'll say, hell yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I don't, you know, I think it's the same that goes for great musicians too. You know?
Yeah, it does. It sort of works hand in hand.
Yeah.
So it says here that you brought out a comedy record, Nowhere Near the Top, as well.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
It was great. I recorded it. What I love about that record is it's basically one take from start to finish. There's not any editing. There's a little bit of editing of like a swear word taken out maybe. I love that. It's start to finish, and it did really well. And for me, it really opened a lot of doors for more work for me. And I love that record because it really has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it's a real snapshot of where I was in my life, in my marriage, with my kids, with my daughter, with my son, where I was at that, like, I'm never not going to listen to that record and not remember exactly where I was at that point with everyone in my life, my family.
So was that all of your material that you've done, or was it some like?
No, basically what we decided was, since I was a new comic, they're like, let's do like, you're basically going to do like a 22-minute EP. And I was like, okay. I was just excited someone had asked me to do the record. Because one of the things that everyone used to say to me is, why don't you just put your record out on side one? Why isn't it on side one? And I was like, because I own side one. And if I put out my own record, what good is that?
Yes.
So I basically wanted someone, I said, I'm going to wait till someone approaches me. And the people at 800 Pound Gorilla said, hey man, we like what you're doing. Would you want to do a record? And I was like, hell yeah.
So was that album before you met Jim Brewer, or was that after?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us how you met Jim Brewer and how that.
I met him like this because my friend Chris Shiflett, who's in the Foo Fighters, he has a podcast called Walking the Room, and he was interviewing Jim Brewer for that podcast. And what ended up happening was he needed a place to record it, so he came to LA and he recorded it Side One Dummy. And Chris said, hey man, I'm interviewing Jim Brewer today. I go, oh my God, I love Jim Brewer.
Yeah.
So it was at my office. So when Jim showed up, I met him. We started talking. He was like, hey man, I was like, I'm a comic and I'd love to work with you someday. And I could tell he was like, yeah, cool. He's like, stay in touch with my publicist. So I stayed in touch with the publicist, and I did for about a year. And then finally I'd ask, hey, could I open? They didn't need an opener. And then one day they said, hey, check it out. We need an opener. Can you go to San Diego? I said, hell yeah. I went down to San Diego. And I remember my dad lives in San Diego. So I said, Dad, you got to come with me tonight. We're going to see Jim Brewer. I'm opening. He said, great. I brought my dad to the show. We went backstage, and I told my dad, wait in my dressing room. I go, just wait in here. I have to go get some people in. And when I came back, I hear Jim Brewer and my dad laughing and talking. And my dad was now in Jim Brewer's dressing room, and they hit it off. Yeah. They were like laughing, and they were talking about the Mets and like just, going nuts. And so then my dad goes, Joe, this is Jim. And I go, yeah, and Jim goes, I love your dad. And then basically Jim always says, you know what, after, I met you and you brought your dad to the show, I knew, what, even if this guy isn't funny, he's a good guy. What kind of guy brings his dad to the show? And then basically Jim started asking me to open for him, and then, just went on the road with him it was like 2 years.
That's so cool.
It was super cool.
Yeah. And what was it like working with Jim? I mean, I'm a huge fan of Jim Brewer. Like, watching him on Saturday Night Live. He's come out to Australia a couple of times. Super cool guy. I've only met him once, but he was really nice to me. We talked Metallica and and AC/DC and yeah. So what was it like on the road with Jim? Is he just the same?
You know what it is? The thing I think that worked with Jim is, like, for me opening for him, I think we're the same dude in the sense that, like, he loves metal, I love punk rock. We're the same age, basically. We were both married to the same woman. Not not the same woman, but you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, we both are married dudes. We both have kids. So, like, I think us touring together, it was, we had fun. Like, we just laugh a lot. What I love about Jim is he's just the real deal. And what I love about him too is he's a super spiritual. There's a deep side to Jim. He's not a silly guy. Like, there's way more going on with him than I think a lot of people know. And he's been there as a great friend for me through a lot, just over the years. And we just became buddies. It's weird. It's like, like, he's someone that, like, it feels like we grew up together, and he's just been a good guy. He's just been such a solid guy. The other thing I love about him too is he's another guy, and this is sometimes rare. He loves to talk about stand-up. Like, if we would spend hours talking about stand-up. We would spend hours talking about word placement. We would spend hours laughing. We would go on these tangents, and we would laugh so hard. And one of the best feelings for me is I can honestly say, like, I feel like another moment I have that's super proud is, I have made Jim Brewer laugh really hard. Like, we've been in the car together, and I've made him laugh and you know, and I've made him cry from laughing. And to me, when I've made him laugh
He's
like
laughed.
that's just that's the best feeling in the world, making someone like him laugh. And
Yes.
that's something I'm super proud of.
He's got that infectious laugh.
Oh,
You know?
dude, he's just hilarious.
So how did it all come about, the whole Metallica tour? Here I am, you know, actually looking maybe to go to on the you know, the US Metallica tour, and I'm always interested to see who the support act is, and I'm looking at it and going, no support act. What is going on here? So tell us, Joe, how this all come about.
Here, you know what I'm going to try to do? Can I share my screen?
Sure.
Okay, so listen to this story. You ready? Here we go.
Okay.
Tell me if this works. This is how the whole thing happened.
All right.
Even the way I got the gig, it was crazy. I've been so fortunate that I've been able to open for the last 2 years for an amazing comedian by the name of Jim Brewer. Amazing guy. And more than a comedian, been a great friend. And I was opening for him, and he's friends with the guys in Metallica. That's his crew. And we would be on the road, and he would literally get phone calls from Lars or get a phone call from James. And I would just sit there and be like, no way, he's talking to Hetfield from Metallica. And as time went on, all of a sudden, one time he goes, hey, dude, check it out. They're not going to bring a band on their next U.S. tour. They want to bring me. And I'm like, really? And all that was going through my head was like, bad idea. Yeah, sounds fun. And then he says this, do you want to go? And I'm like, fuck yeah. And then he says, hey man, you know how to DJ? And I'm like, dude, I'm DJing all the time. Never DJed in my life, never. I just made that.
That's so cool. You
Is
did
that
all the
cool?
cartoon as well.
No, I didn't do that. Okay, so how do I stop sharing? Did it stop sharing screen?
I can still see myself. So
okay, okay, wait, here we go. Stop sharing.
There you go.
How's that?
Yes, back to it. Yes.
There you go. Did that work?
It did work. Yes.
Oh, great. So anyway, that's how it all came about. You know, like basically we were on the road and Jim would get these texts, you know, because he's friends with the guys in Metallica. So like at one point, it'd been going on for months. And then one day he goes, dude, like they're not going to bring a band. They asked me if I want to go. And I remember going like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah. And sure enough, I was like, I don't know, man, that sounds sketch, and, but then he was like, Lars says I can bring someone. Do you want to go? And I remember I was like, yeah, I didn't even know what I was getting myself into. And, it was, I mean, sometimes, I look back on that. I mean, Jim could have brought anybody, and I'm sure they already, I remember we had heard they had already got someone, and Lars wasn't really like, he was like, I kind of want to do something different. And, before I knew it, I remember I had to wait for about 3 weeks to find out that I got the gig. And then all of a sudden Jim and I were just like, I was like, I can't believe this. And, it was incredible, man. I mean, it was just, I had a lot of anxiety leading up to it because I didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. And, it was just so many, is it going to be cool?
Because you had like a sort of a plan, but
dude, we had no plan.
Oh,
dude,
really?
I'll tell you. See, it's funny because that cartoon I just showed you tells that whole story. Because what happened was this. Jim likes to say we had a plan, but I don't remember having any plan. And I love Jim to death. What I remember happening was anytime Jim and I got together leading up to going on the road with Metallica, Jim would be like, okay, Joe, we got to have a plan. And he would start talking, but then we would just start getting so giddy and so crazy. Like, we're going on tour with Metallica. What the, like, this is crazy. And then we would talk more about like, dude, I wonder if they'll play Whiplash. Like it was just like, and then I would ask, and then, also you got to remember, like, he's friends with him. So I would ask him, like a lot of times, we probably should have been planning something, but I'm asking him like, so dude, what's James's house like? Like, I don't know, where does Lars live? Like, is Kirk cool? So, is when we showed up to Madison that first night, and that's what that cartoon's about. Jim had a plan, but the plan was like, we had a couple ideas of what we might try. It was just, but like, you can't plan how you're going to entertain 23,000 people before Metallica. You can't plan that. And thankfully, the first night we got through it, but it wasn't good. It wasn't a tragedy, but I always like to say, the plane came in and there was definitely foam on the runway, fire engines everywhere. They were expecting a crash landing. Now, did we crash? No, but that plane needed a serious repair. It was like there was a lot of shit that we needed to fix. And the thing that I'll say is this is another just super proud moment was, we did Madison, and that show, we knew, okay, we got to fix it. And then we had one day off, and then we had the next show, which was in Minneapolis. So we only had 24 to 48 hours to go from, okay, this does not work, to we got to at least have a show that people aren't going to kill us at. Thank God they weren't selling alcohol in Madison. They were selling ice cream for some reason. Yeah, right. It was weird. But the show in Minneapolis was booze, Right. So I was like, and the thing I'll always remember is I went to Jim's room in Minneapolis the next day, and he's laughing, that laugh you're saying. And he's like, oh my God, you look like you haven't slept. And I'm like, I haven't. I'm so, dude, we got to fix this. And we sat down, and I remember we put together a brand new show, and we literally put together the show in 24 hours. And we ended up doing that show, at least the configuration of it, the way that it would start, the bits that, we were going to do. We learned right away. Like Jim and I would, we didn't realize, at least, we didn't realize that everyone, I don't think Jim knew that everyone knew that they were coming to, this is what I'm trying to say. Let me say this. I don't think Jim took into consideration just how popular he was with the Metallica fans and how much they knew his relationship with the band and how they knew and expected him to do stand-up. I don't think neither one of us knew that. I think we thought, oh, well, they're not going to want to hear jokes. And I'm telling you, the first night in Madison, there was about a 10-minute period that it all clicked because Jim did stand-up. He started talking about AC/DC. He started talking about Judas Priest. He started talking about Lemmy. He started talking about James. He started imitating Lars. And I remember, thank God, the higher power reminded me, dude, you got to do more of that. Yeah. You got to let Jim do stand-up. And dude, I'll tell you this right now. There were some nights Jim would do 40 minutes, 50 minutes in front of 23,000 Metallica fans. And he had them, he does a bit where he says, opening for Metallica is like a lion tamer. You just got to, oh, that guy wants to give me the finger. And I'm telling you right now, considering, we did 35 shows, and, I don't remember. Yeah, sure. There was, one in Philadelphia, of course, someone threw a beer. That was only one beer. I never heard, hey, fuck you. It was, to be honest, man, the show that we put together, I think was honestly and I have so much footage from it. It was just so interactive. We had and when I say interactive, I don't mean with computer screens. I mean, we did fun stuff. We would do a sing-along with the whole audience where we'd go from Sabbath into AC/DC into Johnny Cash into Slay. It was fucking sick. Yeah, people loved it. And then we would, there was stuff he was doing backstage with the band. There's stuff he was doing. It was just great. And but we, that first night was rough.
Yeah. Well, I didn't see that tour with you guys, but I did see Jim at the 30th anniversary shows of Metallica. Yep. And that's where they got, I was lucky enough to go to all four of those. They got Jason Newsted, they got Ozzy Osbourne, and Jim was the host. So I got to see what a little bit of, and he was hilarious, so funny, telling all these stories. Being Brian Johnson, and so it's just great. And you could just tell that he wasn't just a ring-in. He was a dead set. He was a fan. He was true, passionate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he is a fan. Like,
yes.
I'll say this, that, one of the things that, I remember, Jim, that was another thing too. Like, we put together the show, but like Jim never, like he never like told me what to say or like to do. He would obviously give me like, hey man, maybe we do this bit here. Like every day we move things around and we do things. But one of the only things that he made sure I said every single night was, he says, hey, when you introduce me, because the way the show started out was, I always came out at the very beginning, Cincinnati, Detroit, wherever we were. And I'd be like, what's up? Are you guys ready to get this show started? Metallica's in the building. Let them know you're here tonight. Crowd would go crazy. And I'd be like, look, I'm your co-host and I'm your DJ tonight. And like, whatever you want to hear, let me know. And then and they'd show my Instagram. And then I'd say, we got Jim Brewer here tonight. Crowd would go crazy. And I'd be like, all right, look, anything you want to hear tonight, I'll play for you. But like, where are my Priest fans? Crowd would go crazy. Where are my Iron Maiden fans? Okay, cool. Where are my Anthrax fans? All right, they go nuts. And then I'd always go, all right, we're going to start it off right though. Scream real loud so Lemmy can hear you. And we'd go into Motorhead. That was the first song I played every night. And then I changed the song each time. So it wasn't always the same Motorhead song. But what I ended up doing was, it was that thing that I realized from being a kid. If I play Iron Maiden, there'll be people that don't like Maiden. But if I play Motorhead, yes, that just sets the tone for the night. And this turned into a party. And the other thing was, the people in Metallica, the crew, the manager, the band, they never, ever gave us one bit of direction or critique. I mean, they'd give us like, oh, dude, I love when all they would really do is like, I remember the manager, came over to me one night and he's sitting there and he's like, did you just play Prong? And I go, yeah. And he's like, fuck yeah. And then all of a sudden the Sex Pistols started playing. He's like, wait a minute, you're playing Prong into the Sex Pistols? And I go, yeah. And he just looks at me and he's the manager, this guy named Mark Ryder. He's like, fuck yeah. And I go, like, when he came towards me, I was like, oh shit, he has a look in his eye. And he's coming at me to go, you just played Prong. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, fuck yeah. I remember like, Lars being stoked because I would play like, God, what did he want to hear? And I would play it. Like, it just, like it was cool. And, but I do remember there was one thing that Jim said to me. He goes, Joe, the only thing I want you to say every night when you bring me up on stage, because I would play music for a half hour and I'd be like, all right, we're going to get this show started right. I play the beginning of AC/DC for those about to rock. And as the music built up, I say, all right, San Antonio, make some noise, come into the stage right now, my friend, and I'd always say, my friend and diehard Metallica fan, your host and MC, Jim Brewer. And he said, let these people know. And his most important thing was diehard Metallica fan. And dude, he would do his show. We did our show every night. Like, it was like a 2-hour show. And then when Metallica came out on stage, every night, dude, Brewer was in the fucking crowd headbanging. And he would say to me, dude, is that lame that I headbang with the fans? And I go, no. And he goes, and I go, that because I can tell that's what and dude, he would headbang for the whole show.
It's real, isn't it?
Not like, phone it in. Like, yeah. He's, he would just go for it. And then I remember the fans always would try to get him to go on the rail, and he wouldn't do that because he's like, because he's friends with Jane, he's like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, all right, cool. But like, dude, there's videos of him and he's just headbanging so hard into it. Not like, like, oh yeah, it's cool. Like, I'm just going to be into it when they play, Master. Like, dude, he's into it every song. And I remember I was like, dude, that's rad. Like, he's a fan, man. He's a fan.
Dedication. I remember in those, getting back to those anniversary shows, I was in the mosh pit and just doing my thing as well. And this guy kept pushing me in the back and elbowing me and hitting me in the head. And it's like, if he does it one more time, I'm going to turn around and belt this guy. I turn around and it's Chris Jericho, the wrestler, Y2J.
Oh,
yeah. and it's like, oh, so, like he's, oh, sorry, I'm just, it's my day off, and I'm just, letting loose, and it's like, mate, huge fan, keep going, and he said, oh, I can't talk, mate. I'm going to go into the front of the mosh pit, and it's like, you do your thing, mate, go, and it's like, that is just, you know what I mean? So it's just letting loose. Okay, no family, no kids. Just
I think I heard a story a while ago. Like there was a show in LA where Soundgarden played, like maybe the Forum, and like Dave Grohl was in the pit during Soundgarden, and but lost his wallet and keys, like just went nuts, and and everyone was like helping him try to find his shit or some story like that. But wow. I was like, wow, that's so rad. Like, just people, they're fans, they go for it.
Absolutely. Two things that I want to talk about before we finish, Joe.
Cool.
One thing I noticed in your sort of long list of accomplishments, supporting Danzig. What was that experience like?
So that was my first band. That was my first band, Frontline. I think we had changed our name to Lifeline at this point. The record Mother had just come out, and we ended up getting to open up for Danzig in Los Angeles at a place called the Country Club. And we came down and we had played with him one time in San Francisco, and then our manager got us another show opening and performing the Country Club. And I remember they were just on fire. It was the original Danzig lineup, wow. Chuck Biscuits on drums. It was sick.
Wow.
But I always remember the story I always tell is, so we got done playing our show and we're all sweaty and we're all in our dressing room and we're like, oh my God, we just opened for Danzig, and Danzig's going on next, and they're playing all the, they're changing the set, and all of a sudden it's the intro music's playing, and the band starts walking by, and you're like, oh, there goes Biscuits. Okay, cool. Next guy. Boom, boom, boom. And then all of a sudden, Danzig walks by and he looks in our dressing room, and we all just go quiet. We're like, okay. And one of our guys, the bass player in our band, Kevin Morrissey, he goes, Danzig kind of walks away, and he's down the hallway now, and it's still quiet, but Danzig can still hear us. And my friend yells, "Give him hell, Glenn." And we all start laughing like, oh my God, that's so funny. We're little kids. We think it's hilarious. And while we're laughing, all of a sudden, in this quick gesture, so fast, just into the doorway is Glenn again. And he looks at all of us, and the room goes silent, and he goes, "I will." And we just went nuts.
Wow.
Like, yeah. And he just walked away, and we were so stoked.
That's so cool. And I go onto your social media, and I see a ton of Ramones pictures.
Yeah.
How did that all come about?
Oh, man. The Ramones are, you know what, man? When it comes to, I was just going to say, when it comes to music for me, we've talked about Jim Brewer and Metallica. For me, it would be the Ramones. Yeah. That was my band that changed my life. That was the band that got me to where I'm at right now. If I hadn't discovered the Ramones when I was a little kid, I wouldn't have discovered any of the music that changed my entire life. They were the gateway. They're the weed. They're the marijuana of punk rock, man. If smoking weed is a gateway drug, then the Ramones are definitely my gateway to the entire history of my musical career, because I love the Ramones. I don't know what it is. Sometimes I still think about it, because now the band is, it's such a long time ago. They all are dead. So I don't know. Sometimes I don't even like to talk about it, because it's like trying to tell someone why you love Beethoven, and people are like, dude, that's over. Yes. I don't know what it was, but I have my theories of why I think the Ramones connected with me so hard. I think the number one reason is because I think sonically the way their songs are written, because of the short and just, there's no fat on the bone at all. Yes. There's no fat. It's it's just going to be an intro into a verse, into a chorus, into another verse, into maybe a chorus, and then we're going to do an outro, and we're done. And I think for some strange reason, my brain needs and loves the simplicity of that. I'm a very simple dude. Like I eat the same thing. If I like something, I love it. If I don't like, and I think the Ramones music at a time in my life gave me something to count on that wasn't going to change. And I could get my head around it. Like, I think it was simple. And I don't know if that's saying, I'm a simple person or, I don't know. I just, the way it's set up sonically, I think did something to my brain because it felt very comforting. And to this day, I don't know. It was music that just meant so much to me. And then once again, I was a kid that hung out at the club. They came through. I met this guy named Arturo Vega. He was the lighting coordinator for the band.
Yes.
We became, friends. And anytime they came through, I was there, and then I became friends, with him and the band, and then Joey, and then Johnny, and just all of a sudden I, kind of got into an opportunity where I started to, see them, and then my band opened for them. And then as I got older and I started 22 Jacks, Joey was a huge fan of the Jacks, and we became really good friends. And, it's just things like that, yeah, it's just, that seems like a dream. And they just really were just such a band that was so important to me. But it's like, that's why I can't make fun of people. Like when I see kids and they go, oh my God, whether it's a pop artist they love and they cry, and then older people make fun of that kid. Like I can never do that because that's how I was with the Ramones. I can't, when, there's plenty of bands I don't like and people love them, and they go, and I hear other people say, what? Oh my God, how can that kid love that music? And I go, you know what? You've never loved a band so much, and you've never loved music so much that it hurts. Like the Ramones, like still, like I can hear songs and it just takes me back to whether it was seeing them live or hearing the song for the first time, or where I was in my life at that time. It's definitely the soundtrack to my life.
What does the future hold for Joe after the pandemic? What does the future hold?
Gosh.
Because we haven't talked much about your family, and I was kind of sort of pushing to be a good father or something like that,
No, I mean, I think for me, gosh, after the pandemic, gosh, like we were talking earlier, I'll just never take for granted any of the things that I did, I would love to, I can't wait to travel again.
Yeah.
I can't wait to, perform again. I do think though that it's going to be different. Like a lot of things I thought were super important are just trivial now to me, like I'm going to, one of the things, whether it's, for me right now, like when you bring up my family, because I know someone might be like, oh, well, isn't he saying anything about his family? I have teenagers, so I got a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old. Now the pandemic's going to be over, and you know what? They could care less. You know what I'm saying? They're 19. They're like, Dad, what's going on with the pandemic? I don't know. Does it affect my phone? No, it doesn't. Okay, bye. It's like, they're kids. So I don't want to say like, I really, one thing, the pandemic, I'm never going to have to worry about spending more time with my family ever again. Like we're done. When the pandemic's over, it's like, dude, we're done. We don't need to ever go on vacation. We never need to go camping again. We never need to do anything together again because we did it. It's like we spent I'm not going to die. When I die, I won't be one of those guys that you hear about like, I regret I didn't spend time with my kids. Like, no, I spent plenty. I was here during the pandemic. Like, I don't need to see anybody ever again. So I'm not worried about that. With that said, all jokes aside, I will never take, I just want to be able to, have a drink in a bar and talk to someone and not be afraid that I'm going to get them sick or they're going to get me sick. I want to go to Australia and, do comedy. I want to, I was supposed to go to Europe this year. I was supposed to do a States tour. Now, I don't know, how those things are going to be, but I won't ever take again for granted a lot of the things that I was doing before March 16th ever again. And also, there's going to be a lot of things that I'm not going to do again. I'm not going to get, there's so many things in this world that I think all of us were so concerned with. And now, after this last 6 months, you've realized what's important and what's not, who's important to you and who isn't. Who do you want to say today that you love? Who do you want to, not spend time with? Who are the negative people in your life that you need to get rid of? Who are the positive people that you need to pull in closer? What are the things that you want to do and what are the things you don't want to do? That's where I'm at.
Life is short, isn't it? And sorry,
life is so. Check it out. This life is short. Because check it out, Mark. Okay, Craig. I don't know why I called you Mark. Craig. So check it out. The other day, I Googled the average life expectancy for a man in America, and it's 76 years, right? So then that's if you make it to 76. So then I multiplied that times 365, and I got, if you were born today, you roughly, and you're a man, women live to be about 80, but for our sake, for a dude, that's 27,000 days that you have on this planet, right? And change. So then I started going, wow, like think about it. 27,000 days. I thought it would be more. I was like, wow, it's not. So then I multiplied my age times 365 and I subtracted that from the 27,000 days. And I have, if I make it to 76 years old, I only have 8,795 days left on this little stone cruising around.
Yes.
Now, when I think of it that way, some people would say to me, Joe, why would you do the math and stare at a number that's 8,795 days? I mean, that's depressing. And I go, no, it's not depressing, because now, ever since I did that, every morning I wake up and I say to myself, you only got 8,000 days left. If you make it to 76, you might only have 5,000. You might only have 3,000. Hell, or you might have 10,000 days, maybe. Who knows? But the bottom line is, I, in my mind, every day wake up and go, I only got 8,000 days left. So how am I going to be? Am I going to, the other day, it was like, I want to go surfing. Well, I'd have to leave early. Yeah, I get up. Ever since I figured that I only got that amount of time, I've been getting up 6 a.m. watching the sunrise, because I want to get my money's worth out of every single day, so that when I expire and I'm going down, I don't want to expire with a look on my face where they say, oh my God, he looks scared. He didn't know what was going on. I want to just have a smile on my face and just being like, fuck yeah. You know what? Got my money's worth, man. I rode this ride till the wheels fell off. What a party it's been. That's how I want it to go out. And what COVID-19 has taught me was moments like taking the time to say, wow, I might only have 8,000 days left. And anyone that's watching this or listening right now, do the math right there. I don't care if you're 20 years old. I don't care if you're 80 years old. Sit down. Well, if you're 80-year-old, you're on borrowed time, so you're stoked. Okay. But anyone that's listening to this, do the math on it, because when you see that number stare back at you, whether it's 9,000 days, whether it's 10,000, it will change your attitude. It'll change your perspective on everything going on in your life. The person that's bothering you, the person that's, didn't return none of that stuff matters. And what you'll start looking at when you start seeing those days is you will wake up every morning and go, who do I want to be today? What do I want to do? Who can I help today? And I'm telling you, because you start seeing those days slowly back off. And that's the biggest lesson that I have going for me right now during this strange time that we're all living in.
Inspiring. Yeah, absolutely. And just quickly, did either your son or daughter, are they sort of going in the father's footsteps in music or entertainment?
My son is super, super talented. My daughter's super, super talented. Unfortunately for, like my son, he's such a great musician, man. I mean, he definitely, he has a voice, a playing ability that's amazing. And my daughter is super creative in the fashion world. She's doing everything from styling, clothing, making her own clothing. So, I mean, they're both little entrepreneurs. And it'll be interesting to see, because they're definitely, I mean, if anything they got from me is, they're doing it their way, and they make that abundantly clear. Both my kids are like blazing their own path. And it's if anything, I don't know if that's following in my footsteps. It might be, because it drives me crazy, just like I drove my parents crazy.
And finally, Joe, where can we find you? Like, for the Australian listeners, your social medias. How do we get in contact?
I would say this. For my social media, it's always best to hit me up on Instagram, Joe_Sib, SIB. You can follow me on Facebook, just Joe Sib. And then if you want to hit me an email, just hit me an email, JoeSib, JoeSib, the number 22 @gmail.com. And I hope that, someday, Craig, me and you get to meet each other. I would love to come to Australia, and I would love to perform comedy down there. And anyone that's listening to this, if I come down there, come to the show. We'll have a VB together. And we didn't even talk about how much I love AC/DC. I didn't tell you about going to Bon Scott's grave. Yeah.
I've got a list of things here that I haven't even ticked off. So
we'll do part 2. If people care enough, let's do part 2.
I think we should do part 2. And I'm like a huge AC/DC fan as well, obviously. And my father actually saw AC/DC in 1974. He paid $3 to see it, and he said it's still the best concert that he's ever been to. Seeing Bon Scott just tear it up.
Bon Scott.
He drank 2 bottles of Jack Daniels on stage, sober.
Yeah, totally. I've heard so many great stories. I knew a guy that worked for AC/DC, and he said Bon never went on, never was, passed out drunk or anything. Like, he always, just delivered the goods live. Always the best, like pro. My wife always used to say to me, she knew I was always had too many drinks when I started to tell her that I was going to get Bon Scott tattooed on my forearm. And she'd always, and it was always great, because she would always say, let's go get it. Come on, you talk about it. Let's get Bon Scott on your forearm. One of the things I used to always say too was, I always wanted to start, whenever I was in my band or whenever, we used to have a joke that was, things that Bon Scott didn't say. Like, Bon Scott never said, hey, you know what? Let's just order in and watch Netflix. Never said that. Bon Scott never said, I'm going to take the vegan choice tonight. Like, just things that Bon Scott never did. Oh, you know what? I'm going to crash out early. Never.
The stories there of, the Young Brothers. He'd be passed out from the night before at a party, and he'd have like a Jack Daniels or a cigarette, beside his bed, and then he'd wake up and he'd go, oh, it's just a machine.
Legend.
Yeah, just and we need to talk more about that. That the whole Bon Scott grave and Fremantle.
I went to it. I went to where his mom used to cut hair. The whole thing.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I took the journey. But thank you so much, Craig, for having me. I hope I didn't go over time. And to everyone in Australia, can't wait to come down and see you. We'll have some VBs together. We'll play some footy. It'll be a good time. Did I do that right? They say.
Yeah, absolutely. A bit of rugby league. Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for your time, Joe. I know you're a busy man. You got all your look at all these things that you got going on. So I really appreciate your time. And
and thank you for taking the time. This, I'll be honest, on your end too, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to, ask me all these questions. And this was a pleasure on my end. Like, I really appreciate you more than asking me all these questions. And thank you for taking the time to do it. And I hope everyone enjoys it.